You keep waking up with déjà vu, same images, same people, same places. You think it's just a dream, but something deeper whispers, no, it's a message. Because dreams don't lie. They don't care about logic or time. They speak in symbols, emotion, repetition, the language of the soul. And when the same dream repeats itself again and again, it's not for entertainment. It's a loop in your soul's memory trying to break through the noise. You're not dreaming about something. You're dreaming from somewhere, from a place your conscious mind doesn't remember, but your energetic body still carries. A memory not of this life, but of another one. One that left unfinished business. One that holds a pattern you've carried forward. One that's still open because you haven't closed it yet. And now your soul is showing you the scene again and again until you finally ask the right question. What if this isn't just a dream, but a past life echo asking to be seen? You weren't supposed to forget. Not completely, not forever. But the human experience has one rule. Enter with amnesia. Earn the memory back. And your dreams. They're the cracks in that amnesia. Little ruptures in the illusion of linear time. Flickers from a life your current mind doesn't recognize. But your soul never stopped living. That's why they repeat. Not because your mind is stuck, but because your energy is. You keep seeing the same dream, not because you're broken, but because there's a loop trying to close. A pattern you didn't finish. A wound you didn't heal. A vow you never released. A relationship that never completed. And the dream is the delivery system. It brings the moment back, not the memory, the frequency. Because healing doesn't happen through remembering the story. It happens through reintegrating the energy. And that's what these dreams are. Energy echoes trying to rejoin your field. But here's what no one tells you. Most people ignore them. Or worse, label them weird, random, just stress. So the soul has to speak louder and louder until the dreams start bleeding into waking life, until you feel like you've lived this day before, until someone new feels ancient, until you cry over something you've never known but deeply recognize. Because the past life doesn't want to haunt you, it wants to free you. It wants you to see what your conscious mind has filtered out, so your soul can finally complete what it started. But that can only happen when you stop brushing it off and start asking, what part of me still lives in that old life? And why is it calling me now? You wake up remembering fragments, a face, a staircase, a desert, a door that never opens, an animal staring straight into you. You call them symbols, but they're not decoration. They're coordinates. Every recurring image in your dream is a vibrational marker, a portal back to the memory it represents. Not memory in the logical sense, but memory in the frequency sense, because your subconscious doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in geometry, color, emotion, repetition. When you see the same symbol over and over, you're not seeing a random picture. You're standing at the edge of a past life event, frozen in time. And here's the trick. The moment you interact with it, the moment you stop just watching and start feeling, the loop begins to unlock. That closed door represents a choice you never made. The falling sensation, a trauma the soul still holds. The ancient city, a location you once called home. The language you don't know but somehow understand. A frequency your soul never stopped speaking. These symbols aren't poetic. They're functional. They're tools, gateways, encoded messages from your deeper self to pull you out of forgetting. And every time you ignore them, the loop continues. But every time you pause and ask, why this? Why now? You pull a thread that starts to unravel the entire karmic knot. And if you stay with it long enough, you'll find the moment it all began. Not to relive it, but to reclaim the version of you who never got to finish their story. That's what these dreams are offering you. Not escape, not confusion, closure. If even one image keeps following you across nights, it's not for decoration. It's a door, and the key is your attention. If your dreams have ever shown you something that felt too specific to be random, subscribe and hit the bell, because the soul is speaking in symbols now, and you're finally listening. You think your habits are just personality, that your triggers are random, that your fears are yours alone, but they're not. They're residue, leftovers from timelines your soul never fully closed, unspoken words, unfinished decisions, unhealed betrayals, entire lifetimes where energy got trapped and followed you into this one. Because here's the truth no one teaches. Energy doesn't disappear. It transfers. If you abandoned yourself in a past life, you'll find it hard to trust your voice now. If you lived in hiding, you'll feel unsafe when fully seen. If you lost someone violently, you'll sabotage intimacy before it gets too deep, and you won't know why. You'll call it anxiety, or fear of success, or just how I am. But your soul knows better, because your present patterns are the echoes of unresolved energetic contracts, and your recurring dreams, they're your soul's way of showing you where you're still entangled. Not to punish you, not to overwhelm you, but to offer you a way out. Because until that energy is reclaimed, you'll keep looping. Same types of partners, same endings, same losses, same ceilings, different actors, same vibration. But once you recognize the pattern for what it is, not a flaw, not fate, but a frequency loop born in another lifetime, you gain access to the only power that matters, the power to rewrite the story, not from willpower, but from awareness. Because awareness is the vibration that dissolves karma. It's the light that collapses repetition. It's the truth that finally closes the open tab your soul left running lifetimes ago. And when that loop ends, you don't just dream differently, you live differently. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with fireworks or finish lines. It happens in the smallest moment. The moment you wake from the same dream and feel something different. Not fear, not confusion, but understanding. The moment you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this version of me still holding on to? That's when everything changes. Because when you finally feel the pattern without defending it, when you stay conscious instead of shutting down, when you respond differently to what you always react to, the frequency fractures. And in that fracture, a new path opens. It might not be visible yet, but energetically, your soul feels it. A lightness, a gap, a release from the gravitational pull of a reality you didn't know you were stuck in. That's the timeline shift. You don't jump into another world by accident. You graduate into it by closing the contract that bound you to the old one, because karmic loops don't end by force. They end through integration. You take the lesson, you feel the wound without becoming it. You send closure where the door was always left open. And when that happens, the simulation adapts. Suddenly, you meet someone new who doesn't activate the same pain. Suddenly, you handle that trigger with calm instead of collapse. Suddenly, a dream shifts. The hallway that never ended opens. The voice that was chasing you disappears. The face you feared smiles. Not because you fixed your dreams, but because you rewrote the script your life was playing out. And once you do that, you're not repeating anymore. You're redirecting. There's a moment before everything changes, and it rarely feels peaceful. It feels like emotional chaos. Old memories surface out of nowhere. Faces you haven't thought about in years reappear in dreams. Sudden grief for things you thought you'd healed floods your chest. You feel tired, lost, like you're unraveling. But you're not breaking down. You're being prepared. Because your soul's blueprint includes a security mechanism. When you're about to shift to a new timeline, the old energy must be discharged. It's not punishment, it's physics. You can't bring emotional residue into a higher frequency state. You have to purge what doesn't match the next version of you. And the most efficient way your system knows how to do that? Dreams. Sudden flashbacks. Energetic memories that shake loose from your cells and rise to the surface. These aren't signs that something's wrong. They're signs that something is being released. But here's the key. Most people mistake this purge for relapse. They think they're going backward, so they resist. They suppress. They question everything. And by doing so, they block the upgrade their soul already queued up. But you can choose to receive it differently. You can feel the emotional flood and say, I don't need to analyze this. I just need to let it move. You can sit with the dream and say, this is a transmission, not a trap. Because that's what's really happening. You're not remembering randomly. You're being recoded. The soul is clearing out what's no longer needed, preparing the vessel, aligning you to the frequency of the next chapter, a chapter where that old story no longer defines you. That's why some of your most emotional dreams come right before a breakthrough. That's why your sleep feels heavier before a glow up. That's why closure often feels like grief. It's the price of expansion. And the faster you surrender to the release, the faster your field can stabilize in the new tone. Because you can't move forward while dragging echoes. But once the echoes are gone, the future doesn't feel distant anymore. It feels like home. You've heard of soul contracts, agreements made before this life, about who you'll meet, what lessons you'll face, what patterns you'll carry. But what no one tells you is this: soul contracts aren't permanent. They're programmable, not through logic, not through willpower, but through awareness. And dreams are where those contracts become visible. That's why so many spiritual breakthroughs happen in the dream state. Why so many karmic ties show up there first. As lovers you never met, enemies you instantly fear, cities you've never seen but deeply recognize. You're not just dreaming stories. You're stepping into the memory field of your soul's agreements, and you have more power there than you think. Here's what that means. If you wake up from a dream that feels emotionally intense, where you're constantly running, hiding, searching, you're not being punished. You're being shown a contract that's up for renegotiation. Because when you bring consciousness into those experiences, you can rewrite them, not just in sleep, in waking integration. Here's how. Track the emotional core, not the narrative, the feeling. Was it abandonment, rejection, powerlessness? That emotion is the root clause in the contract. Honor the version of you in the dream. They're not fiction. They're fragments of your past lives or energetic selves that want acknowledgement, not erasure. Feel what they feel. Then speak from your current self. I release this agreement. This pattern no longer defines me. Create closure in the waking world. Write the dream down. End it the way you wanted it to end. Not to escape, but to assert authorship. Your field doesn't care if it happened physically. It responds to intention plus emotional truth. And when you do this consciously, the next time you dream of that same loop, it plays out differently. The door that was locked opens. The person who chased you disappears. The version of you who used to run stands still. Why? Because you didn't just interpret the dream. You rewrote the contract in real time, from the inside. This is not imagination. This is timeline editing through soul alignment. And And the more you work with your dreams this way, the more quickly karmic cycles dissolve, not because you fought them, but because you finally understood what they were for: initiation, integration, evolution. All this time, you thought you were dreaming, but you weren't escaping reality. You were retrieving it, because dreams don't take you out of life. They take you deeper into it, into the layers you buried, into the contracts you signed, into the versions of you still waiting for closure, still waiting to be seen, still holding pieces of your power. And every time you wake up saying, "That felt real," it's because it was. You were traveling, remembering, reclaiming. That's why dream work isn't spiritual fluff. It's soul surgery. It's where old timelines get rewritten and new ones open before your eyes ever adjust to the light. Because once you begin working with your dreams, not as confusion, but as conversation, you become something rare. A person who lives across dimensions consciously. You recognize signs in waking life that others miss. You feel people's patterns before they speak. You sense truth, even when it hides behind smiles and silence. Why? Because your field is no longer limited to the 5 senses. You've trained it to read vibration across lifetimes. And now the dream is no longer a dream. It's your navigation tool, your diagnostic system, your blueprint for remembering. So if your soul has been whispering through repeated dreams, don't ignore it. Don't overanalyze it. Don't brush it off. Sit with it. Feel into it. Ask it what it needs. Because once you complete the loop in your dream world, you wake up to a different reality, not just emotionally, energetically, karmically, chronologically. You wake up as someone who's no longer repeating the past, but finally designing the future. And now, here's the question waiting in your next dream. What version of you still exists in that loop? And what will it take to finally bring them home? Drop it in the comments, because someone else has had that dream too. And maybe your insight is the key they've been missing.